it's harder, it just depends on what level I'm doing it at, because if I'm just on my own, I don't have a roadie, I don't have anything, it's just me, and I'm hauling, like, 3 suitcases with the merch and everything, and 2 guitars on my back, and I'm getting on trains, planes, cars, and I'm just hauling it, and it's real hard work, and I feel it, and it's particularly hard because I've had the luxury of being, in a couple of big bands with our road crew, and all I did in those days was just, like, swan in, and I didn't even pick my guitar up, it was picked up by a roadie and put around my neck, my swan-like neck.
Welcome to The Creative Asylum, a weekly podcast that digs deep into the minds of visionary creators of all stripes. Musicians, actors, filmmakers, writers, artists, cartoonists, and cultural disruptors. Here, we'll discuss perspectives of living life on your own terms. Life lessons that keep us grounded, insane, and sometimes pull us back from the edge. So, take a deep breath, loosen your grip on the bland and the boring. This is your weekly prescription for authentic living, creative clarity, and hopefully, a little bit of cultural rebellion.
Side effects may include spontaneous joy, existential epiphanies, and an uncontrollable urge to do weird and beautiful things.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Creative Asylum. My name is Daniel House, and today's guest is David J., probably best known as a bass player for both Bauhaus and Love and Rockets, but he has put out a number of different solo records. He's produced records. He creates visual art. He does poetry. He's written and directed plays. And at the time of this recording, which is March, even though you're not seeing it as an episode until June, he has a new record out called Tracks from the Attic Revisited. Last year, he put out a 3-album set called Tracks from the Attic, which is basically demos and ideas, sketches, seeds, if you will, various song ideas on Independent Project Records. And Bruce at Independent Projects had this idea of taking a bunch of the tracks from that as fully realized, fully fleshed out, produced tracks. And so that's what this new record is. So we had this conversation. It was a great honor. He's been a hero of mine musically since I was probably 21 years old. And so to have the opportunity to talk to him was really great. So without wasting any more of your time, I'm sure you want to hear more what he has to say. So this is our conversation with David J. And hello, David J. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you, Daniel. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm so appreciative of you joining me here on the Creative Asylum. Even though we are pretty close in age, you and I, you're somebody who at a very young age was one of my earliest musical heroes back in the early 80s when I was first learning to play bass myself and first being in bands. And so it's an honor to have you here and to just be able to talk with you about, life, music, creativity, all of that. You've been awfully active for almost half a century now,
Yeah.
I suppose. You're the kind of person that I really like to have here because you're somebody who sort of does everything. You've made music and you've created art and poetry, and I think I read that you've directed plays and written plays. And maybe the question is, what don't you do?
Is that a real question?
Yeah.
I don't juggle,
Okay.
only metaphorically.
Okay. Well, yeah, I tried juggling once and it didn't work.
I spin a lot of plates metaphorically as well.
But I mean, I assume that's part of just what drives you, yeah?
No, it's just a result of being interested in many things.
How did you first develop an interest in playing music?
Well, this would be like early teens. It was really when David Bowie came along, as far as playing music. And I had a friend in school, Chris Day, who had a guitar, and he just got the Ziggy Stardust album, and he was telling me that he'd worked out some of the songs, and I didn't know what that meant. So I said, "What do you mean worked out the songs?" He said, "Well, I've worked out the chords." I said,
Right.
"What are chords?" He said, "Come round to my place and I'll show you." So I did, and
Okay.
it was like a light bulb moment. I realized that you could approximate, and I mean approximate, what you loved on these records. And then I got a guitar. I got a cheap guitar, and I I learned as many chords as I could, and that's what started me. Yeah,
When did you make the shift from learning other people's material to exploring the process of writing your own music?
as soon as I learned like the first three chords,
Oh,
I
really?
started.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
really.
Bowie was also a huge influence for me, and I know you wrote a song about Bowie at his
Yeah,
passing, and this year, of course, 2026, it marks. I actually cannot believe that it's been an entire decade since he passed.
I know it's very strange, time is strange. But yes, I wrote the day that David Bowie died on the day, literally that night.
Hmm.
And I recorded it the next day because I had a session booked. I was on the road. Had a session booked at Revolver Studios in Portland, Oregon. But I wrote that song that night. So when I got in, I said to Colin Hegner, he's in Brian Jonestown Massacre. That's his studio, and I said, Colin, I'll change your plan here. I got this new song that I just have to record. And we did it there and
Yeah,
then, and we just invited musicians in. So we had like kind of revolving door of players who came in and did their bit and left. And by the end of the day, we mixed it, and then we invited everybody back, got some nice wine in, and all sat around and listened to it and had a sob and a smile. And it's a beautiful way of processing it, you know.
it still seems like a tangible hole in the fabric of the world that he's gone. To
I,
me,
I know what you mean, yeah.
you have this new record coming out, which was sort of a springboard from the tracks from the Attic set, re-explored and re-examined and maybe rediscovered a bunch of tracks from that set and decided to revisit them and record them more, I guess, I don't know, fully or properly or
Absolutely, yeah. Because the originals are just me and an acoustic guitar, or me and plinking on the
right.
piano, usually a guitar, and really basic, you know. And then it was suggested to me this idea of going back into the studio with a band and making them fully realize. And I was totally up for that because in the process of listening to these demos, really quite often it was the case that it was the first time I'd listened to them since I recorded the things because they were abandoned, you
Hmm.
know. And I in that process of revisiting, I was getting ideas for some of them, like thinking, "Oh god,
Yeah,
I could have added like this instrument on this one. I could have, changed this one around." And so that was in my
right.
mind, and so it was great to actually go back and actually do that with a really good group. And I'm really pleased with how it's turned out.
Yeah,
We
it's
breathed
beautiful.
new life into these dormant seeds, made them bloom.
Were there any of those seeds that you sort of rediscovered with no recollection of having done them
Absolutely.
prior?
Oh yeah.
What was that like? I mean, was it were you recognizing that, "Oh, yeah, this is me, but I don't remember doing
Yes.
this," and
Yeah, very much so.
yeah,
Especially because it was, some of those moments were very fleeting, and I would just, have an idea will bubble up, and I'd put it down really just as notation, and then move on to something else, and forget all about that.
they were sort of just they were
Real
sketches, like
sketches, yeah.
ideas.
They were never intended for
Yeah.
public consumption, let's put it that way. But there's a kind of a very unself-conscious element to the recordings. There's always when you're in the studio and you're recording a piece of music, there's a self-conscious aspect to it because that this is gonna be, go out there, eventually be released, and, there's gonna be an audience, for it. But with these demos, that was not in my mind, it's just like, "Oh, stick this down," just like writing a note, to yourself.
Well, how did that come to be that you had all these demos and these sketches, ideas, seeds, whatever you wanna call them, that those ended up getting collected and released as a proper release?
I have a friend in Hungary, in Budapest, called Gabor, and he was aware that I had these. It was literally shoe boxes full of cassette tapes of demos,
Right.
and he was just concerned that they would deteriorate, so he volunteered to digitize them. And so I said, "Yes, sure, thank you very much," and I shipped them over to him, and he did a nice job on them. He sort of did a mastering job on them and they came back. So I had all these files, and then when I was approached by Independent Project Records, they were requesting something demo-y, they said, and something lo-fi, something's never been released. Yeah, do you have anything like that? And I said, yeah, I've actually got a trove of that kind of thing. And I
That's
sent it to
amazing.
them thinking, "Oh, maybe we'll, like, cherry pick 12 tracks and we'll release an album." They said, "Oh, no, we wanna put all of this out." I said, "Really?" They said, "Yeah, I wanna make, like, a 3 albums set." And, so that was great, you know?
Yeah, and that was what? That was just a few years ago,
Yeah, it's
correct?
like 4 years ago, 3 years ago.
Okay. You've taken what was that? Like, that was maybe around 30 tracks
Yeah,
and this
30 odd
or
tracks,
something, and
yeah.
this new release is what? A third of that?
Yeah, just under that, yeah. And the tracks, they're from 1984 to 2004.
Oh, really? I didn't realize it went that far back. So it went all the way back to, like, Bauhaus, Love and
Yeah.
Rockets days. So, is there any idea that there could be a second record, revisiting a bunch of the tracks from those demos, or are
I
you more
don't think so, because 'cause I've got so much, in the pipeline, and I'm continually
Yeah.
writing new material,
Mhm.
so I really wanna focus on that, you know. I'm gonna have a brand new, double solo album coming out in the autumn.
Okay. Also on Independent Project Records?
No, it's a different label, it's on Flatiron.
Okay. I don't know them. Where are they from?
They're based in Denver, a great label. They
Uh-huh.
put out the Night Crickets project that I did with Victor De Lorenzo and
Okay.
Darwin. We did 2
Yeah.
albums with them. It's like, it's a subsidiary label to Flatiron called, what's it called? Label 42, I think. Anyway, they're keen to release the solo album. I'm actually mastering that right now.
Oh, wow. Really? And it's a double album.
Yes, a double album. And it's got a lot of strings on it. The tracks have got a full orchestra, a 23-piece orchestra on it.
Wow, really? Really? Was that an idea that came as you were writing, or was it sort of after you put the initial demos together? Or, I mean, was that part of the initial concept to do a record with full strings?
No, it's funny how that came about because I was in Prague producing an artist and, it didn't work out. And I actually it's the only time I've done this, but I actually left the session. It was very problematic. And we got an orchestra in to work on one of his songs, and, we
Uh-huh.
weren't gonna do that song. And I stayed up all night writing a song about said artist, all night. And, we had this orchestra, a great orchestra at our disposal. I'm gonna hire that orchestra myself, and I'm gonna use it. So I recorded this song there about the artist with the orchestra, and it's an epic.
And is that one of the songs on the upcoming record?
Oh, yeah, it's called, Walking with the Angels. I've always loved strings, and so I after that, I started writing more material, and I thought, "I wanna keep this strings element going here." And, so a lot of the tracks have a string quartet, or they have a little sort of 8-piece ensemble. Some of them are 16-piece strings, and a lot of those were done by one man, Gregory Allison, who's a brilliant musician and an arranger, and just superb. So, he did a lot of that work
Where's he based?
in Portland, Oregon.
And you're living did you live in Portland at one point?
No, I've been, like, in and out of Portland for forever. I did entertain the idea of living there at one time, but I've never lived there really. I usually stay with friends there, or I stay at the Crystal Hotel, which is the hotel where I wrote The Day That David Bowie Died. But I live in LA.
Yeah, I like Portland. I've thought about moving there, but, I lived for quite a few years in Seattle, and now I live in San Diego. And I lived in LA for about 14
Oh,
years,
okay.
actually. West Coast. It's all West
Mm.
Coast for me. How long have you lived in the States versus being over in Europe?
Since '97.
Okay. So, almost
Yeah.
30 years. So, are you gonna be touring this coming record, the revisited record on independent projects?
Yes, I will be out on the road. Yes, because that's out in May, and I've got some dates in June.
And then you'll be touring again, I presume, when the double record comes out
Yeah.
in autumn? Is it the same group of musicians supporting each record or different group?
I don't know who's gonna be playing with me in the autumn, but,
Okay.
for the run in, June, it's different players in different places, and I often do that, like,
Yeah.
pick up musicians, who are local, and I love to do that.
Mm.
There's a guy, Joel McClune in Detroit. He's actually gonna be playing with me very soon because I've got a couple of dates in Detroit. He's a great player. He plays with a man called Duende, who are based in Detroit. I've done quite a lot. I've recorded an album with them, and we're going to do some more recording when I'm in town this time. And then I've got a guy, John Courage from Santa Rosa, who's a brilliant multi-instrumentalist. He's going to be playing with me on some dates. My longtime collaborator, Tony Green, on double bass, is going to be playing with me on some of the dates. So it changes around.
So when you're going on the road to support a record, you're not necessarily playing with a touring band for the duration
No.
of the dates. Wow. Do you rehearse with these different musicians along the way prior to each performance, or they just learn the songs and you go in and...
I might steal like one rehearsal with them the night before, but quite often we just turn up and they're that good.
Wow. That sounds terrifying to me. That sounds absolutely
Yeah, it is.
terrifying.
It's exhilarating. Some of the gigs I'll just do solo.
Do you have a preference, or it just depends on the material?
No, I like both. I like doing both.
In terms of producing other artists versus being a performing, composing artist
Yeah.
yourself, do you have a preference there, or are those just sort of different itches that need to be scratched in different ways?
I really love producing, just being in that role.
Mhm.
And it's just always music that really connects with me, you know. They're all passion projects.
yeah.
Every production job I've taken on has been because I'm passionately involved in it. And if I get paid, then that's very nice. So they just come along, you know, and I don't seek them out. They just come my way. I like wearing that hat, the producer's hat.
If you're enjoying this conversation, please make sure you hit that follow button so you never miss an episode. If you're watching on YouTube, please like this video, leave a comment, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. It's the quickest way to grow our channel, and it's absolutely free. You can also subscribe to our other channels on social media. Check out our Instagram at Creative Asylum CA, that's the letter CA, or on TikTok at The Creative Asylum, that's all one word. Our website is thecapod.com, and our Facebook profile is the same, facebook.com/thecapod. All right, back to the episode. Generally speaking, you don't work with artists that you don't feel passionate about, except for maybe that one that went south in Prague.
No, I felt very passionate about that artist.
Oh, okay.
I'm so passionate because he's incredibly talented. There's some problems.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna name, but
I won't dig into that. Yeah, that's fine.
But you know, I wish him all the well. He's not in good health at the moment. Yeah.
That's too bad. So do you ever see a time when you're not doing what you do, making music and just doing all the different creative things that you involve yourself in?
I can imagine music receding to a degree, although it's not happened yet. And receding and something like painting taking over.
Because you do visual art as well, correct?
Yeah.
And at what point in your life did you begin doing that?
When I was 4.
Okay.
I loved art at school, you know, and I was always kind of top of the art class. Always wanted to be an artist when I was a kid.
So basically, just creativity as a central component of life seems to be core to everything you do, regardless of how it expresses itself. Are you going to be coming to San Diego with either of these projects? Do you know?
Yeah, I got a gig at the Casbah in San Diego, one of my favorite places, Tim Mays.
I was there last night, as a matter of fact.
Oh, what did you see?
At the time we're recording this, right, it's March, and I don't believe this episode will actually be coming out until early June, I think. We're doing this well in advance. I'm just saying this for listeners and viewers. So last night I saw Red Cross, who I've seen many times over the years, and opening for them was a friend of mine named, I think you know him, Conan Neutron.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, he's got his Protonic Reversal podcast, but he also has his band Conan Neutron and Secret Friends. And so they were the openers. And yeah, it was fantastic. It was great. But both bands were amazing. And it's such a cool club.
Yeah.
Because it just always feels very kind of familial.
Yes, that's a good word for it.
You know?
My date there is June the 8th and June the 9th. And that will be with John Courage on guitar and other instruments.
And will you be doing material from this upcoming record, or you do whatever you feel like?
We'll be doing a couple from the tracks from the Attic Revisited, and John actually plays on that album. and, as well as, a selection drawn from all over the place. Career spanning set.
How is it for you these days touring as opposed to, I don't know, decades ago in your younger days?
Uh, it's harder, it just depends on what level I'm doing it at, because if I'm just on my own, I don't have a roadie, I don't have anything, it's just me, and I'm hauling, like, 3 suitcases with the merch and everything, and 2 guitars on my back, and I'm getting on trains, planes, cars, and I'm just hauling it, and it's real hard work, and I feel it. And it's particularly hard because I've had the luxury of being, in a couple of big bands with our road crew, and all I did in those days was just like swan in, and I didn't even pick my guitar up. It was picked up by a roadie and put around my neck, my swan-like neck. Thank you very much. And so then when you go back, to like slugging it, it's hard, especially when you're knocking on a bit. I mean, that's just one side of it. That's just like the real hard work side of it. But I love once I'm all set up in the venue, and be it a club, an art gallery, or somebody's living room, then I love the actual performance, connecting with the audience, and just a moment of playing music live. I love that.
Yeah, that connectivity that you
Yeah.
feel with people in that moment is magical.
Yeah, and I feel that more than ever when I'm playing in living rooms, like living room circuit, which I've been doing
Mhm.
for years, and I love that. It's probably my favorite kind of venue.
Do you ever miss the large scale fame that you experienced with like Bauhaus and Love and Rackets, or is that just sort of a
I
chapter?
do miss those, like, big events. I did relish those occasions as well. It's very different kind of energy.
I know you guys did some kind of Bauhaus reunion some years ago. Was there ever something similar with Love and Rockets as
Oh,
well?
yeah.
Is there a chance that that could happen again?
It's looking rather unlikely. I mean, the last run we had was great. We were playing better than ever, and that was only a couple of years ago. It was with Jane's Addiction when all that went down. Like, halfway through the tour, Perry has a
Yeah.
meltdown, and it's all over, like having the rug pulled from under your feet. Yeah, that was not
Yeah,
solid at
that was
all.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
Is there any chance that you'd be playing with your brother and Daniel Ash again?
I say it's looking a bit unlikely, mainly because we're all now involved in other projects. More Daniel is and I am. That seizes your attention, and focus. So, yeah, it's unlikely. But no, that's not to say it'll never happen.
Well, it's worth asking because, probably fans of yours and fans of your music history invariably on some level probably crave that as much as,
Yeah,
there's the whole thing about all the new material you're doing and what's new, but there's also that whole trend towards seeing that thing that they missed back in the day or
sure.
something.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've always thought that being one of those bands that's sort of, I don't know what you call, bands like Blue Oyster Cult, who go out there in whatever version and all people want to hear is the hits from 30, 40 years ago. And I would imagine if you're actually in a band, you don't want to do that. You want to explore new frontiers and new creativity. And so I've always thought that must be fairly frustrating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I've never known that, so it's kind of irrelevant, but
Yeah. Although I still really like the music that we did, and I can get into it.
well, I noticed the new material you're doing is really there's kind of a warm lushness about it and a particular pop sensibility. It feels different, but in a way it feels like a logical conclusion to some of the more poppy stuff that like Love and Rockets was doing it at one point.
Yeah, I do that.
Just thinking of the progression from like Bauhaus to what you're doing now seem like very different kind of colors and textures.
Yeah, it was really whatever was suggested by the song. It was sort of like discovering the essence, the essential hidden character of the song that was never fully realized, and just letting the song speak and become an expression of itself in the right way. I don't know. It was very obvious to me, like how the song should be treated.
In terms of like instrumentation
Yeah, and
and
just the mood of the track, and what is the essence of this track, what is it saying? So what kind of interpretation does it need to be expressed?
Do the ideas typically for you come in your head first, or do you have to have an instrument and does it come through the actual playing, or do you hear an idea before you even pick up an instrument?
Before I pick up an instrument. And that's where, it's sort of like I'm being the producer, but for myself.
Right.
When I'm producing artists, I ask them to send me really basic demos,
Hmm.
and it usually be a piano or a guitar, and then I listen to it, and I don't try it too hard. I just listen to it and see what comes to me as far as instrumentation, and it usually comes very quickly. I kind of hear it in my imagination, and so then it's a matter of like actually manifesting that in reality.
Well, that makes sense to me. Well, in looking at everything you do and everything you've done, what is it about your creative process and sort of just how you've lived your life that keeps you going? What are the motivating factors in life that, get you out of bed in the morning and drive you through all the things you do?
Mm. Curiosity, being open and having the antennae up and tuning into whatever it is that is going to inform the piece of work that you're working on in the best way. And I actually love accidents and I love the unpredictable. And I see that occurrences like that, like something that could be perceived as something going wrong in say, the recording process, as, oh, wait a minute, no, maybe that's suggesting a different direction here. Or, it can be something just like a piece of equipment not working properly and it's making this weird noise. It's like, oh, it's broken. Oh, yes, it's broken, but maybe it's broken in
You should use
a
that.
beautiful way. Use it. So it's just, and that's all part of being curious as well. So it's not being fixed and
Yeah,
dogmatic about what is going to come in to your sphere of reference. Don't sort of deny any colors in the palette.
right.
You get what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay.
Just essentially be open to the opportunities as they present themselves.
Yeah, yeah. Open-minded, expansiveness, curiosity.
I've always been fascinated by Brian Eno. I'm trying to remember what the
Yeah,
name of those cards that he created.
yeah. The oblique strategy.
Oblique strategies. Yes, thank you.
I have those in the studio all the time, but
You do.
yeah, there was a tribute set that I was asked to make a contribution towards, and they asked different people like Robert Fripp and Alan
Hmm.
Moore did one, just one instruction. This came out. It was a nice sort of presentation. It was a nice box, similar to the original, you know. And mine was reheat the leftovers.
Which is what this record is about.
It is, and I actually never made that connection.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. I'm happy to plant that seed with you then.
That's a neat conclusion to this interview.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Creative Asylum. A quick favor before you go. If you liked this conversation, please be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes drop every Tuesday at 10. You can find us on Instagram and on YouTube at Creative Asylum CA. That's Creative Asylum and the letters CA. Our website is thecapod.com. And our Facebook is the same, facebook.com/thecapod. Until next week, when we'll have a new conversation with another creative disruptor, stay creative in life and at work.